Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be comparing the Chevy Silverado LTZ to the F-150 Lariat to the Ram 1500 Laramie to see which luxury truck is best. Before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Schmiller Chevy here in Provo, the Ford here in Provo, and the Ram here in Provo for giving me some time with all three trucks. I'll include a link to all of their websites in the description down below. Also include a link to my car buying guide. Let's get into it. Under the hood, we have a twin-turbo 3-liter inline-6 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy 17 around 10 and 24 on the highway, with power outputs being 420 horsepower and then 469 pound-feet of torque. Powering the Ford is a twin-turbo 3.5-liter V6 that goes through a 10-speed paired to a hybrid. Fuel economy is 22 around 10, 24 on the highway. Power outputs 430 horsepower, 570 pound-feet of torque. Powering the Chevy is a turbo 3-liter inline-6 diesel that goes through a 10-speed, fuel economy 22 around 10, 26 on the highway. Power outputs on this 305 horsepower, 495 pound-feet of torque. Before we move forward with this comparison, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So when it comes to front-end features, you can see that all of the trucks have fog lights. The Ram has this kind of like fancy pants sport hood going on. The Ford is all blacked out, which looks really cool. The Chevy's going for the whole chrome look. But regardless, when it comes to features, they are all pretty similar. Well, actually, they're not all pretty similar. One thing to note, the Chevy and the Ford have tow hooks. The Ram does not. And speaking of stuff that the Ram does not have, all-terrain tires. So this just comes with regular street tires. You can see pretty fancy looking wheels, but we pop over to the Silverado, less fancy looking wheels, but all-terrain tires. And the Ford also has street tires. So I guess it's the Chevy that's the one that has all-terrain tires. Anyways, you got fancy badging on all of them. You can see the mirrors are very squared off in both those trucks, whereas the Ram kind of more rounded off. The Ram's got fender flares, whereas the other two do not. The Ford has side steps, and I'm pretty sure the Chevy does not have side steps. The Chevy utilizes leaf springs. The Ford also utilizes leaf springs. And if we pop over the bed of the Ford and to the Ram, we've got coil suspension here in the back, so no leafs. Now starting in the bed of the Chevy, you can see protected already from the factory. This one has the multi-flex tailgate, so it folds down to be a step. We've got lights in the bed. We've got an outlet in the bed. We also have snow in the bed. Tailgate, you gotta lift it up yourself. There is a button to lower it on the key fob. Pretty cool looking rear end, again all boxy and squared off. With the Ford, look at those fancy taillights. We've got a bunch of outlets in the bed, but no bed liner. It's kind of a Ford thing to do. And then lifting up the tailgate is pretty easy. Again, there's a button on the key fob to lower it. You got the dual exhaust tips there at the bottom. Yeah, sharp looking back end. And then with the Ram, we have an outlet here in the back. We've got LED lights. You can see the sliders there to tie stuff down to. Bed liner. And then same thing with the key fob, you can just pop it down easily. Dual outlet exhaust tips just like the Ford, but more chromed out. This leads us into the back of the Chevy. Pretty nice materials. Same thing with the seats. There's a little bit of storage behind the seat thing. Kind of a fun feature. But yeah, just generally speaking, pretty solid. Storage underneath. Got some cup holders. You can see heated seats, USBs, all of that. Great space. Tons of passenger room against a crew cab. And take a look at the Ford. Pretty nice materials. The seats are a little bit fancier looking, and the Ford space is very similar. Got heated seats there in the back, vents, charging ports and all that. Pretty similar in terms of the spacing, and you do have some under seat storage too. And then finally looking at the Ram, I think it's got the nicest materials. Same thing with the seats, kind of the fanciest looking. They can recline, and you also have little ice buckets with this. Tons of space. You can see the seats recline forward. That's more accurate with the space. Heated seats, USBs, all of that. So similar features, similar space as the other two. This leads us to the front of the Chevy. Again, nice trim. You got memory seats, you got blind spot monitoring with the mirrors, power folding mirrors. $14.79 for the payload. Again, fancy leather trim here with the front seat. 4-wheel drive auto, low and high. Got a heads-up display, controls for it. Pop on the truck. Takes a second to turn on because it's a diesel, but full digital gauge cluster. Got stuff like adaptive cruise control, heat steering wheel on the steering wheel itself. Heads-up display with this as well. It's going to make me shift to, or buckle to shift rather. Get my stuff backwards. Chevy. Sometimes Chevys annoy me to film, I will say that. Come on, buddy. There we go. 360 camera, great resolution with the camera system. You got stuff like your tailgate drop down, hill descent control, important luxury stuff, heated and ventilated seats, dual zone climate. You got trailer brake controls, this truck thing. This center console setup here, good storage, wireless phone charging pad, camera rear view mirror. You got a regular sunroof. You got a button for the power sliding rear window. Now popping up front, see again more soft touch here. Front two windows are automatic. You got power folding mirrors, memory seats, blind spot monitoring. 1469 or 1459 for the payload. I don't know where the 6 came from. But yeah, nice trim with the seats. Getting in's easy with the side step, so that's always a plus to have that. Pretty solid there. Full digital gauge cluster here with the Ford. We also have a heads-up display just like the Chevy. You got practical controls in the steering wheel like your adaptive cruise control. You've got a 360 camera, not quite as user-friendly as Chevy's, but still gets the job done. Heated and ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, dual zone climate. You got an advanced four-wheel drive system, so auto, all of that. You got a rear locking differential. In the Chevy, it's automatic. In this, it's selectable with the rear locker. Tons of storage here. It's pretty nice with the trim that folds up. Just a regular rear view mirror. You do have a power sliding window, no sunroof. Taking a look at the front door panel, I think the Ram has the nicest material use. See automatic windows, power folding mirrors, memory seats, blind spot monitoring, very similar equipment. Payload 1545, so similar payload as well. Laramie there, but nice trim on the seats. Pedals are power adjustable. Getting in's pretty easy. Would be nice to have side steps, of course. And then starting her up. So partially analog gauge cluster, so a little bit less digital-y. Got drive mode selected in the steering, which is kind of interesting. Adaptive cruise control, just like the other two. No 360 camera, just a backup camera. No heads-up display, so a little bit less tech. But we do have heated and ventilated seats and a heated steering wheel, dual zone climate. Still have an advanced four-wheel drive system with low, no rear locking differential. Got your trailer brake controls. I've said this before, but yeah, best center console in terms of the usability. Just a regular rear view mirror, power sliding window, and then just like the Ford, no sunroof. Now, when it comes to pricing, the Ram's about 71, the Ford's about 74, and then the Chevy is just under 70. It's like 68, 69-ish. So the Chevy's actually the least expensive, but it has the most equipment. Go figure. Let's drive them. Okay, we will set off in the Ram first, then we'll do the Chevy and then the Ford. So seats are comfortable in the Laramie, and of course you got the heated seat, cold seat function if you want even more comfort. I really like this new inline 6. Still questioning on whether or not it's going to be reliable, but it does perform very well. It's super smooth with the acceleration, and the 8-speed's always been smooth, but hey, you pair this 8-speed with this inline 6 and it's a match made in heaven in terms of smooth acceleration. It's very, very nice. Now, aside from that, interior insulation is pretty darn solid. It's interesting how it kind of, yeah, it's got nice materials throughout. I think the Ram's done a really good job with that. The trucks, kind of generally speaking, just feel more premium compared to the other two, and I think a big part of it's just general fit and finish with the truck. I mean, this thing I've noticed because I owned a Raptor and a TRX, and I just noticed the TRX interior is way nicer than the Raptors, even though the price points were not that far apart. It's not to say that Ram doesn't have plastics throughout, by the way. They definitely do exist, but we'll see how it accelerates here. So smooth. It's got a ton of power, but it's just really smooth. It's such an impressive powertrain. I love it. So yeah, the Ram, it drives really well. Let's go pop into the other two and see how they perform. Chevy with the Duramax See how this is. Gotta love the sound. Definitely the best sounding powertrain out of the bunch here. Yeah, that torque is great. Now, although this doesn't have the top end of the, and you'll see that with the bigger acceleration, but yeah, it doesn't have the top end of the Hurricane, inline 6 diesel is still really smooth. So I really hope that more manufacturers do inline 6s moving forward, because there are some pretty big benefits to them when it comes to performance. And if you do them right, they can be extremely reliable. And the only reliable powertrain that BMW has is their B58 inline 6. So, yeah, I love that sound. It's really, it's like this kind of like, you got the deep diesel sound, you got this nice whistle with it too. It's really cool to hear in person. Probably doesn't come through on the camera very well, but that's okay. Yeah, see, it doesn't quite have that top end of the Hurricane, but it still gets up and moves. And this is an engine that you just drive on the low end. So the Chevy, comfortable suspension, feels a little bit heavier, a little bit more trucky compared to the Ram. Handling's not quite as good, but it's still fine. Overall, it's a well-built machine. Well, let's finish things off with the Power Boost F-150. So right off the bat, feels more lightweight than the other two. The hybrid's actually pretty darn smooth. And this thing I will say about the F-150 is you pretty much have to go to the hybrid if you're going to want as smooth of a powertrain. But I will also say it's not quite as smooth as either of those. It's still good. It's just not on the same level, I would say. It's not bad though. It's still a very smooth powertrain. Seats are pretty comfortable. Say these and the Ram seats are more comfortable than the Chevys. The suspension, the Ram's most comfortable. The Chevy, this one feels a little bit busier with the suspension, but it's pretty comfortable. It's not bad at all. Interior feels more open in the Ford because the windows go down a little bit. So that is something else to note. It's very quiet too. The hybrid kind of leads to that. It's quick. It is quick. So, Chevy wins. And then Ram and Ford are, I like Ram's powertrain more, but Ford gives you a little bit more equipment. So, yeah, that's kind of my take. Chevy just has the best value in this comparison. And money does talk, right? They're sub $70,000 and the other two are over 70, so let me know your thoughts.